2 Kings chapter number 5. Go with me to verse number 13. I'm going to read to verse number 15. There you find these words there. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, Wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and came and stood before him. And he said, Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant. I want you to read for yourself verses 1 through 15 when you get a chance as I talk to you from this subject today. The danger of pride. The danger of pride. You may be seated. And I want you to listen to me very carefully, and I want you to listen to me with your spiritual ears to get an understanding of what I am really saying concerning the word of the Lord today. Amen? Today I want you to learn some lessons from men, angels, and animals about foolish pride. Because everyone knows that the lion is supposed to be the king of the jungle. And one day, the lion, being filled with pride, decided to make sure all the others knew it. He was so confident that he bypassed the smaller animals and went straight to the bear. Who is the king of the jungle? The lion asked. The bear replied, Why, you are, of course. You are the king of the jungle. And then the lion gave a mighty roar of approval. Next, he asked the tiger, Who is the king of the jungle? The tiger quickly responded, Everyone knows that you are, mighty lion. Next on the list was the elephant. The lion faced the elephant and addressed his question, Who is the king of the jungle? At first, the elephant ignored him. So the lion roared, Who is the king of the jungle? The elephant immediately grabbed the lion with his trunk, whirled him around in the air 5 or 6 times, and slammed him into a tree. Then he pounded him onto the ground several times, dunked him underwater in a nearby lake, and finally dumped him out on the shore. The lion, beaten, bruised, and battered, struggled to his feet. He looked at the elephant and said, Look, just because you don't know the answer is no reason to get mean about it. Stay with me. Listen to me carefully. Stay with me. Today, we are going to discuss pride. And I'm using the animals and the lion from the animal kingdom as an example to explain how pride operates. The Bible gives us several warnings about pride. Proverbs chapter 13, verse number 10 says, Pride leads to conflict. Proverbs chapter 16, verses 18 said, pride goes before destruction. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 2 said, pride leads to disgrace. And Proverbs chapter 29, verse number 33 said, pride ends in humiliation. So let's look at Mr. Lamb. His pride led to conflict. All the other animals were unsure of their ability to stand up to the lamb. They cowered before him and showered him with compliments. But the elephant withheld his answer, and in his pride, the lamb became confrontational. Next, his pride went before his destruction. Mr. Lamb found himself being whirled through the air, slammed into a tree, smashed into the ground, and nearly drowned before being deposited on the shore. His pride then led him to disgrace. All the animals that had feared him so much were now in awe of the elephant. And they began to reconsider who was the true king of the jungle. Finally, his pride left him humiliated. He tried to make a comment that deflected from the fact that his pride has disgraced him and destroyed his reputation. The danger of pride is what led Paul to write in Romans chapter 12, verse number 3, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Do not think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given you. Many folk today have a tendency to measure themselves on a basis of worldly standards. They feel they look better than someone else. They are more fit, more successful, more wealthier, more talented, and the list goes on and on and on. But Paul warns us not to evaluate ourselves, he says, too highly. In other words, he said, don't think more highly of yourselves than you ought to. As Christians, we should evaluate ourselves based on the faith that God has given to us. In other words, we are to have a right state of mind about ourselves, being honest with ourselves about our faults. And James chapter 4, verse number 6 states, God opposes the proud, but favors the humble. God paints a picture in Ezekiel of one who thought they were better than they really were. He said, you were the model of perfection, full of wisdom and exquisite in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Your clothing was adorned with every precious stone, red carnelian, pale green peridot, white moonstone, blue-green beryl, onyx, green jasper, blue lapis lazuli, turquoise, and emerald, all beautifully crafted for you and set in the finest gold. They were given to you on the day you were created. I ordained and anointed you as the mighty angelic guardian. You had access to the holy mountain of God and walked among the stones of fire. You were blameless in all you did from the day you were created until the day evil was found in you. Your rich commerce led you to violence and you sinned. So I banished you in disgrace from the mountain of God. I expelled you, O mighty guardian, from your place among the stones of fire. Your heart was filled with pride because of your beauty. Your wisdom was corrupted by your love of splendor. So I threw you to the ground and exposed you to the curious gaze of kings. Satan, I'm talking about. Satan, whom God said was a model of perfection and exquisite in beauty, allowed pride to enter into his inner being. He became proudful in his beauty and in his role. Thus his wisdom became corrupted. He thought he was better than he really was, and because of this, he was banished and thrown to the earth. Therefore, let's answer this question. What is pride? Pride in itself is not necessarily evil. We take pride in our children's accomplishments. We take pride in our accomplishments for Jesus. When the master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," the servant has a right to be proud. Evil pride is that pride that exalts you in arrogance when you think you're more than you really are. And this type of pride is like a surge in pride, much like an ocean wave. It is a type of pride that is destructive, with each proudful moment becoming greater. And this type of pride also referred to a tallness that grows steadily every day, ever reaching new heights of self-exaltation. A type of pride that nearly cost a mighty warrior his blessing from God in 2 Kings chapter 5, verse number 1. Look what it said. The king of Aram had great admiration of Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. Now, I have always heard that the word "but" means everything that was just said is no longer relevant. Naaman was a great commander. He was greatly admired. He was a mighty warrior that had many great victories, but none of that mattered because of his leprosy. But there was a young Hebrew slave girl that told the king of Aram about a prophet who lived in Samaria that could heal Naaman of his leprosy. So the king sent Naaman to visit him. 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 9 through 12 goes on to say, so Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elijah's house. But Elijah sent a messenger out to him with this message: go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy. But Naaman became angry and stalked away and said, I thought he would certainly come out to meet me. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of his Lord, his God, and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana, the Pharpar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in rage. Elijah was not avoiding Naaman because he had leprosy. Elijah simply saw no reason to show this man any sort of abundant praise. Naaman had come for a cure. God had relayed that cure to Elijah, and Elijah had sent a servant to relay it to Naaman. The cure involved washing 7 times because 7 is the number of perfection with God. The cure involved washing in the Jordan because it was the river, and he didn't really understand, in the midst of the Holy Land. But Naaman's pride flares up. He feels like he is not getting the respect he deserves. Stay with me. He imagined Elijah coming out of his house and bowing before him like he was all of that. You better watch that spirit of pride. Then while waving his arm, call upon God and demand that he be healed. Instead, Elijah sends a servant. So Naaman is headed home. But he's headed home angry and upset because his pride got the best of him. He wanted to be treated special as though he was all of that. He let the pride get in the way of his healing and deliverance, like so many do today. If they don't call the shots or the way they think it should be done, then it's just, it won't be done if you don't do it my way. Ungodly pride, I tell you, is dangerous. It will keep you from receiving the blessing that God has for you. Who do you think you are? Without him, you are nothing. You can't have it your way. Amen. All the time. There is a way that seemeth right unto man, but it leadeth unto destruction. Remember, I said I'm talking about animals like I started out. I want you to get this. Let me tell you about llamas. It is said in South Africa, to keep a herd of llamas corral, they say you don't even need a fence. All you need is one rope circling around the herd to keep them enclosed. They say just by placing it at a height beneath the head and the base of the neck, the llamas are secured in this makeshift fence or this makeshift pen. Rather than stooping beneath the rope, the proud llamas stand tall but remain captive. Listen to me. Many people are that way today, like proud llamas. Won't stoop, won't bend, won't bow, won't do what God says, and God knows everything. He's the creator of all things. God knows the beginning from the end. But because of their pride, will not bow just a little bit to be free. Naaman was a llama. Rather than stooping to wash in the Jordan River, he would stand tall with his pride intact and remain a captive to his leprosy and continue dying a slow death. But his men reasoned with him. 2 Kings, chapter 5, verse number 13. But his officer tried to reason with him and said, Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he simply says, Go and wash and be cured. Now Naaman must overcome being an impala. The African impala can jump to a height of over 10 feet and cover a distance of greater than 30 feet. Yet this magnificent creature can be kept in an enclosure in any zoo with a 3-foot wall. The animals will not jump if they cannot see where their feet will fall. It was time for Naaman to jump, and Naaman didn't want to jump because of pride. It was time for Naaman to obey a simple instruction, and because of his pride, because of his position, he didn't want to obey. Here you are, man, dying, slowly dying a slow death, and you don't want to obey a simple answer, a simple question, a simple answer to go and wash in the Jordan River 7 times and come away clean and healed. How many of you that God has told to get up and come to church every Sunday and I'll turn everything around for you? Or how many of you have made God a promise, if you deliver me, God, if you set free, God, I'll serve you till I die. And once he sets you free, you don't show up next Sunday. How many of you have prayed and told God, if you give me this house, God, I'll give it back to you, God. And I'll come to church every Sunday. I'll pay my tithes and offering. You get the house, you don't show up no more. You're too tired to come to church. How many of you have prayed for God to open up a door knowing your credit was bad? God give you that brand new car, and then all of a sudden you're riding on new wheels. You don't even come back and give God no thanks.